Chapter 726. The Escaped Mirror Disaster. Ruins. After Lin Chia and the others left, the entire ruin fell into a deep silence. In front of the pitch-black temple, puddles lay quietly on the ground riddled with ravines. Suddenly, ripples spread across the surface of the puddles, and a figure in a silver robe quietly stood in the reflection on the mirror-like water. With a single step he emerged from the puddle and stood above it. Pure Land Silver Robe Oracle Mirror Disaster. His gaze swept over the surrounding demon bones, finally landing on the black temple, his eyes narrowing slightly. Since being severely injured by Yuzuri Heki in Osaka, the Silver Robe Oracle had been hiding in the mirror world, quietly following Lin Chia and the others. Because the mirror world was a place only he could enter, even Lin Chia's spiritual perception could not detect his presence. He was healing while secretly tracking Lin Chia and Amamiya Siku, following them all the way from Osaka to Hokkaido and then to this ruin. He initially only wanted to find an opportunity to kill the invaders and the wanted criminal known as the Fierce Ghost, but inadvertently discovered the location of this ruin, a mysterious place even the Oracle had not noticed. The Silver Robe Oracle stepped forward, a silver halo flashing in his left eye, locking onto the light sphere held by the Amaterasu statue. Moments later, an electronic voice sounded in his ear. Unknown energy fluctuation detected. Analyzing. Analysis complete. The energy matches royal blood, at a rate of 97%. The energy concentration is 3,642 times that of royal blood, containing a large amount of impurities with a very high risk of fatality. Hearing this, the Silver Robe Oracle's brows furrowed. A large amount of impurities. After hesitating for a moment, he still did not reach out to touch the silver sphere's surface. Instead, he shifted his form and dashed in another direction. When he stopped again, he had arrived before an ancient vermilion torii gate. On the pillars of this torii there was a pixelated positioning device. The Silver Robe Oracle looked at the torii before him, excitement flickering in his eyes. This is the exit from the human circle? In the mirror world he had clearly seen Jialon and the others walking out from it. If his guess was correct, beyond this torii was the world outside the Yata mirror. That was the world the Oracle had longed for. The Silver Robe Oracle licked his lips, his eyes shining brightly. He took a deep breath and stepped into the vermilion torii, his form flickering and disappearing from the spot. After a dizzying spin, he found himself at the bottom of the deep sea off the coast of Japan. Fortunately, the Silver Robe Oracle was a modified human and did not need any diving equipment to easily survive and move in the deep sea. He swiftly swam through the water, slowly surfacing from the large gap in the copper mirror, rising toward the sea surface. After an unknown amount of time, his figure suddenly emerged from the rolling waves. A hazy mist surrounded him, and the endless sea rippled under the dim sky. The Silver Robe Oracle's figure drifted among the waves, his eyes quickly scanning the surroundings, the silver halo in his left eye seemingly searching for something. Moments later, his gaze locked onto a ship not far away. That was the ship Jialon and the others had come over from Dacia. The Silver Robe Oracle swam to the edge of the ship, leaping out of the water and landing steadily on the deck. Only then did he clearly see the scene of the distant coastline. Under the dim sky, the ruins along the Japanese coast exuded a deep and lifeless aura. The mist shrouded everything as if a gray hand had strangled all vitality within, and everywhere he looked was filled with a chilling, terrifying, deathly atmosphere. That is the true Japan. Seeing this scene, the Silver Robe Oracle felt not sadness but rather a surge of excitement. He had truly emerged from that damned human circle. He had found the passage back to the real world. After gazing at the ruined Japan for a long time, the Silver Robe Oracle turned around and walked into the ship's cabin. He activated the positioning device inside, and an electronic nautical chart appeared on the screen. The silver halo in the Silver Robe Oracle's eyes flickered as he instantly grasped the navigation method of the ship, deeply imprinting the route it had taken in his mind. He now knew where this ship had come from. The realm of the real world. The Silver Robe Oracle looked at a certain area on the map, a cold smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. How thrilling! Pure Land. Anqingyu closed the screen in front of him, rested his eyes for a moment and let out a long breath. Finally finished. Jiang Air floated behind him, blinking his eyes, and a voice came through Anqingyu's Bluetooth headset. Did you really read it all? That was dozens of gigabytes of documents. Yeah. Anqingyu nodded. Although it took almost 2 weeks, I now fully understand this country and the truth about these oracles. As he spoke, Anqingyu walked to the massive floor-to-ceiling window at the edge of the Pure Land, looking down at the tiny city below, murmuring, "If I'm not mistaken, Takamagara is in trouble." Takamagara? Jiang Er asked in confusion. Japan's divine realm, what could go wrong? It houses a large number of Japanese deities. Anqingyu shook his head. Do you remember what I told you about the human circle a couple of days ago? The entire country is a world created by the gods of Takamagara to collect faith. To maintain the daily operation of this human circle, the gods of Takamagara chose a local technology company in Japan when the mist descended, using means to ensure its survival from the mist. The name of the chosen company is Pure Land. The Pure Land Company has a wide range of research fields, including biology, genetics, and even energy applications. When old Japan was destroyed by the mist and the human circle was born, the Pure Land Company, with partial divine power support from Takamagara, achieved a technological leap. The 7 executives of the Pure Land Company at that time abandoned all employees, using artificial intelligence and automated production technology to create their new headquarters, which is this flying saucer-like structure suspended above Tokyo. Subsequently, they used technological means to modify their bodies and, through infinite technological replication and the vast amount of soul fuel accumulated after the destruction of old Japan, achieved immortality. Bearing the responsibility of managing the human circle for the deities and possessing supernatural powers, they called themselves oracles, and ruled this country for 100 years. Chapter 727. The Ambition of the Oracle Envoy. In the first 40 years, every month, the gods of Takamagara would use their means to contact the Pure Land, allowing the oracle messengers to report on the operation of the human circle during that time. However, starting from a certain day 60 years ago, Takamagara has not contacted the oracle messengers again. It was as if they had completely abandoned this place, with no news for a full 60 years. Jiang Er nodded thoughtfully. So, you suspect that something happened to the gods of Takamagara? That's right. The scale of this human circle is so vast that the gods of Takamagara cannot possibly ignore it. With no contact for 60 years, I believe the only possibility is that something happened to Takamagara, Anqingyu continued. When this situation first began, the oracle messengers thought it was an accident. But after 5 years they started to realize something was wrong. Yet, due to their fear of the gods' immense power, they continued to do their jobs, managing the entire human circle. It wasn't until another 10 years had passed with still no contact from Takamagara that their mindset began to change. This change is something I can only speculate on. These things cannot be recorded in documents. However, from the series of actions they took in the Pure Land, it seems they began to test whether Takamagara had truly disappeared while also conducting various experiments related to divine power. These 7 oracle messengers were capitalists even before the fog descended. Even though they had taken control of the entire human circle, greed still flowed in their veins. Having witnessed the gods' power, they began to fantasize about becoming gods themselves. Thus, the so-called royal blood experiments and the god-making plan emerged. They want to rebel? Jiang Er exclaimed in surprise. Perhaps that's only part of it, and Qingyu adjusted her glasses. These oracle messengers know the truth about the human circle. With their technology and supernatural powers, they naturally cannot be content to rule in this false world. So they began to find ways to leave this human circle. The database of the Pure Land contains a vast amount of war simulation systems and even cloning devices for oracle messengers. They could easily use their astonishing reserves of soul fuel and these technological means to create a super army composed entirely of oracle messengers. A super army made up of oracle messengers? Jiang Er thought of those 7 powerful oracle messengers and gasped. What do they want to do? One oracle messenger is already incredibly formidable, capable of battling a strong opponent from the Klein realm of the Great Xia. If there were hundreds or thousands of oracle messengers, what terrifying power would that be? Of course, to dominate the fog world, and Qingyu said calmly. Once they find a way to leave the human circle, they will likely begin to replicate themselves in large numbers, using that billions of soul fuel as a foundation to incite war. Incite war. Zhang Er was bewildered. But the entire fog world only has the Great Xia left, right? And Qingyu glanced at him, her eyes filled with complexity. You mean they want to invade the Great Xia? Zhang Er quickly reacted. Have they gone mad? They're not mad. They're blinded by long-term hegemony and the illusion of omnipotence, and Qingyu sneered. If they truly believe that replicating an army of oracle messengers will allow them to rule the entire Great Xia, then they are truly pitifully foolish. Lin Chia glanced at the time and looked up at the dark road ahead. Is someone coming to pick us up? Wei Dong asked in confusion. Do you have other team members in the human circle? This place can't use the forbidden ruins and there are oracle messengers monitoring. If you don't have the corresponding skills and knowledge, isn't it very dangerous? Dangerous? Lin Chia hesitated for a moment. It's not too bad. Wei Dong stared at Lin Chia for a long time, letting out a deep sigh. Captain Lin and his team must have had a tough time, right? According to Lin Chia, he and his team members were washed ashore in this country by the sea, without learning the local language in advance, lacking the corresponding cultural knowledge and unable to use the forbidden ruins. Surviving here must not be easy. After all, when it comes to handling human circle tasks, the Night Watchers of the Great Xia are still more professional than their Xia society. Well, at least they managed to ensure they weren't exposed, which is quite impressive. As Wei Dong imagined the tragic life of Lin Chia's team in the human circle, admiration began to rise in his heart. Just then, a buzzing engine sound came from the distant road. Everyone looked up to see beams of blinding headlights tearing through the silent night. A convoy of over 30 vehicles was speeding along the coastal road, moving in perfect unison toward them. Convoy? Wei Dong was taken aback. Vroom vroom vroom. Immediately after, a whirring sound came from the distant night sky, as a helicopter followed closely behind the convoy, rapidly flying forward. It seemed to have spotted Lin Chia and the others by the coast and began to circle above. A helicopter? The knight's eyes widened. Are we being discovered by the human circle managers? Not quite, Lin Chia replied calmly. It's our people coming to pick us up. The 30-plus cars came to a stop by the coastline, and the doors opened simultaneously. Members of the Black Kill Group, dressed in black suits, got out of the cars, about 200 of them, marching toward Lin Chia and the others with great momentum. Are they here to fight? Jialan silently gripped the handle of the black box. Boss Chia, hello. At that moment, the 200 or so people stood in front of Lin Chia and suddenly bowed deeply, shouting loudly. The sound startled Wu Xiangnan and Wei Dong. They turned to look at Lin Chia in confusion. Lin Chia's mouth twitched slightly. The helicopter hovered in the air and a rope was lowered from the cabin door. A figure, holding the rope with one hand and smoking a cigarette, slid down from the sky and landed steadily on the ground. His flowing cloud cloak billowed in the sea breeze as Shen Qingzhu took off his leather gloves, removed the cigarette from his mouth, tossed it onto the beach and quickly walked toward Lin Chia, speaking in a low voice. You said that fat guy is in trouble? Where's he? Does he need to go to the hospital? I had someone fly the helicopter over directly. If he needs to go to the hospital, we can get there in 3 minutes. Before he spoke, Wei Dong and the others thought he was a powerful figure from a local force in the human circle. But when Shen Qingzhu spoke fluent Chinese, they realized that this man was the team member Lin Chia mentioned. They glanced at the neatly lined up 200 subordinates behind them, then looked at the helicopter above, their mouths twitching wildly. The situation, are you serious? Chapter 728. All members confirmed. The convoy sped down the highway under the night sky. In a spacious SUV, Shen Qingzhu glanced at Wei Dong and the knight sitting in the back, lost in thought. So, you guys come from that cult? It's called the Shangye Society, the knight corrected seriously. It's a professional organization active in the mist. Oh. Qi, is that fat guy really okay? Shen Qingzhu seemed uninterested in the Shangye Society and directly asked Lin Qiyi. Don't worry, he just needs to sleep to recover, but we're not sure how long he'll need to sleep. Shen Qingzhu nodded slightly and turned to the blue-robed girl beside Lin Qiyi. What about Jialan? Jialan patted her chest and smiled mischievously. How could anything happen to me? But you, it's been so long since we last met and now you've become a mafia godfather? Very cool. Shin Qingzhu smiled but didn't respond. I have a question. Wei Dong couldn't help but speak up. If I'm not mistaken, this is the largest underworld force in the Kansai region, the Black Kill Group, right? Who exactly are you and how can you command so many members of the Black Kill Group? Shin Qingzhu glanced at him, somewhat puzzled. I'm the group leader, isn't that obvious? Wei Dong was stunned. As someone who had been mingling here for a long time, secretly gathering information about the human circle, Wei Dong certainly knew what kind of force the Black Kill Group was and had heard the legendary stories about its leader. But he never expected that this rumored leader was actually a member of the 5th Special Team of Daxia. Did you know much about the underworld before you came here? Wei Dong asked. Shin Qingzhu was confused. Why would I understand this stuff? Then have you conducted in-depth research on Japanese culture? Japan? I've never been in contact with it. Then you should be able to speak Japanese, right? I can say 3 sentences. Shin Qingzhu hesitated for a moment. Now I probably can say 5. Wei Dong. Wei Dong stared at Shin Qingzhu, his eyes filled with deep confusion. He couldn't understand how someone like Shin Qingzhu, who seemed so naive, could become an underworld legend and command the entire Black Kill Group. Could it be that this is the legendary genius undercover agent? By the way, Shin Qingzhu seemed to remember something and turned to Lin Qiyi seriously. My people have found Chao Yuan's whereabouts. Tokyo. Chiyoda District. A detention center. Behind the metal bars, Chao Yuan sat in the corner of a small room, looking at a beam of sunlight streaming through the window, lost in deep confusion. The day before yesterday, after recovering in the Pure Land, he bid farewell to Qingyu and confidently set off on a journey to find Lin Qiyi. However, just as he returned to Tokyo from the Pure Land, after wandering for half a day and sitting on the Shinkansen ready to leave Tokyo, a plump middle-aged woman in the carriage suddenly screamed, claiming that a pervert had molested her. By the time the police arrived, the panicked middle-aged woman had already collapsed to the ground in fright. However, because there were too many people in the carriage at the time and she was too scared, it seemed she hadn't clearly seen what the person who molested her looked like. As a result, everyone around her was subjected to the police's simple questioning. It was better not to ask. Once they did, there was no identification and the fierce-looking Chao Yuan was singled out by the police. Thus he who had just escaped from the Pure Land prison was taken to the detention center in Chiyoda District and locked up, preparing for interrogation. Chao Yuan worried that if he resisted, it would attract the attention of a large number of police officers. He couldn't draw his sword and use the forbidden ruins, so he could only obediently follow the police to the detention center, waiting for an opportunity to sneak out later. Chao Yuan thought about it all night but still couldn't understand how such an absurd thing could happen to him. Since he was young, it seemed he had a special connection with prisons. First he was locked up in the police station due to the forbidden ruins going out of control, then transferred to a fasting center. After finally managing to get out for a while, he encountered Lin Qiyi and was locked up again. Now he had become a member of the 5th Special Team, yet he was still tragically imprisoned in the Pure Land for 2 years, and now he was in a detention center. The concept of prison seemed to have always been imprisoning him. He felt like a beast trapped in a cage of fate, unable to gain true freedom from beginning to end. In the narrow and dim detention center, Chao Yuan sighed deeply. At that moment, a police officer walked in from outside, knocked on his cell door and said, "You can go now." Chao Yuan was taken aback and looked up in confusion. "Someone has bailed you out," the officer said while opening the cell door. "With the influence of the Kazamatsuri family, your background is quite solid. Hurry up and leave, don't come back again." Kazamatsuri family? Chao Yuan walked out of the cell in confusion but didn't ask much and walked straight out. As soon as he stepped out of the detention center, several cars stopped at the entrance. A little girl dressed in a black sakura kimono, with a white long sword hanging at her waist, leaned against a car. When she saw Chao Yuan walking out, she dusted off her hands and approached him. "Are you Chao Yuan?" she asked. Chao Yuan nodded. "Who are you?" "My name is Yuzuriha, and I'm now the young master of the Kazamatsuri family." The little girl smiled slightly. "I'm here to pick you up on behalf of Brother Qiyi. Come with me." Hearing those 2 words, Chao Yuan's pupils suddenly constricted. "You're the young master of the Kazamatsuri family and no Lin Qiyi?" He glanced at the black vehicles around and asked warily, How can you prove it? Yuzuriha turned her head, shrugged helplessly, took out a phone from her pocket, dialed a number and handed it to Chao Yuan. Chao Yuan took the phone and held it to his ear. A few seconds later, a familiar voice came from the other end of the line. Chao Yuan, long time no see. Inside the car, after Lin Qiyi finished the call with Chao Yuan, he couldn't help but smile wryly. Letting a female member of the Black Kill group pretend to be molested and then framing him to get him into the detention center to control his freedom. Your Black Kill group's methods are really domineering. Shin Qingzhu raised an eyebrow. There's no other way. At that time when those people found him in Tokyo, he was about to take the Shinkansen to leave. They didn't dare to act recklessly to force him to stay, fearing it would alert him, so they could only use this method. At least the outcome is good. Lin Qiyi nodded. It's just that he might feel a bit frustrated. By the way, have you finished your business? Finished. What's next? Lin Qiyi pondered for a moment and slowly spoke. Since we've contacted Chao Yuan, and he said he knows the whereabouts of Qingyu and Jiang Air, now that the locations of all members have been confirmed, we should notify them to meet up and then we'll return to the country. Chapter 729. Mysterious Video Recording. Haven't Qingyu and Jiang Air been found? Jialan asked curiously. Where are they? Chao Yuan didn't elaborate, but he said they would contact us soon. Lin Chia paused for a moment. From his tone, it seems like they've done something quite significant together. Significant? Wei Dong raised an eyebrow. What could be more significant than becoming a legend in the underworld and taking over the entire Japanese underworld? Are they planning to rule the country? Lin Chia thought seriously for a moment. If it's those two, there is indeed that possibility. Wei Dong's mouth twitched slightly as he rolled his eyes silently. If you two are going to rule this country, what do we need the S Society for? We might as well just be unemployed. Returning to the country, Shin Qingzhu looked out the window, his brow slightly furrowed. Isn't your cult supposed to eliminate this human circle? What will happen to the people living here? There's nothing we can do. We can only relocate 500,000 people in advance. The rest won't be our concern, the knight said calmly. He glanced at the person sitting next to him, Yugong Qinghui, and switched to Japanese. Of course, if they have a way to save themselves, we won't stop them. After all, what we want to destroy is just the artifact that accommodates the human circle itself. Yugong Qinghui looked out at the night sky, remaining silent. Although both the S Society and Yugong Qinghui aimed to destroy this country, the former sought destruction for its own sake, while the latter aimed to save through destruction. Their positions and philosophies were different, and thus their methods would inevitably differ. But at least in certain aspects, their goals were aligned, such as first destroying the theocratic foundation of this country. So how will you choose those 500,000 people? Shin Qingzhu continued to ask. Choose those of value, Wei Dong replied without hesitation. For example, prioritize those with expertise in engineering, agriculture, chemistry, and other knowledge beneficial for survival and development. Then there are traditional cultural inheritors such as priestesses and craftsmen, even cowherds. Next are top talents from various industries, engineers, chefs, and capable light novelists and manga artists. They carry the culture and symbols of life in this country, and they are the sparks we, the S Society, will preserve out of humanitarianism. Valuable people, huh? So, the underworld doesn't make the cut? Shin Qingzhu slowly spoke. Not at all. Wei Dong hesitated for a moment before continuing. We won't allow gangsters and thugs, the scourge of society, to enter the utopia. Shin Qingzhu sat in the passenger seat, not saying anything further. He simply stared silently at the pitch-black road ahead, his deep eyes lost in thought. Pure Land. Qingyu Chao Yuan just called and said he got in touch with Chia and the others. Jiang Air, dressed in a white dress, floated silently from a distance, her eyes filled with excitement. So soon? And Qingyu was taken aback. Chao Zai's efficiency is quite high. He said Chia is currently with Shin Qingzhu, Jialan, and Pang Pang in Hokkaido. Jiang Air couldn't help but exclaim. With this, everyone in our small team is gathered. And Qingyu wasn't surprised by this. He smiled slightly and said, with Chia around, even if the trajectory of fate has diverged, everyone will gradually converge around him, as if there's an unseen force connecting us oddballs together. He is destined to be our leader. You, a great scientist, are starting to believe in these metaphysical things? There are some things that you really can't help but believe, and Qingyu replied helplessly. Look at the people in our small team. Is there anyone simple? That's true. And Qingyu stood by the window, silent for a moment as if he thought of something. He turned to Jiang Er and said, Jiang Er, show me that video, one more time. Again. Jiang Er asked in surprise. You've watched it nearly 30 times over the past few days, right? Things that are hard to understand must be watched multiple times, and Qingyu paused. By the way, you didn't show that video to Chao Yuan, did you? No, a couple of days ago he asked me if I had found that video from back then. I remembered your instructions and told him no, so he didn't ask again. Good, that's good. And Qingyu nodded and walked to the large electronic display screen, his expression gradually becoming serious. This thing. It's better not to let him see it. Under Jiang Er's forbidden domain effect, the surface of the display screen began to fill with snowflakes. Moments later, a video began to play automatically. This was a surveillance video from 2 years ago in a certain road in Hachimandai City, with the camera facing a wide road. There were no pedestrians on the road and several cars were haphazardly parked in the middle, their doors open, but the people inside had vanished as if they had fled. Still that corner, zoom in, and Qingyu instructed. Jiang Er manipulated the screen, magnifying a corner of the video several times. Beneath the blurry image, one could vaguely see several figures in colorful robes surrounding a menacing figure emanating black flames in the center of the road. The black figure was retreating under the siege of the many oracles, the dark flames on its body growing fiercer. Suddenly, a blinding beam of light fell from the sky like divine punishment, precisely striking the black figure, directly incinerating its head, chest, and torso, with most of its body disappearing along with the road beneath it. The black figure, having lost most of its body, did not fall but stood rigidly, like a bizarre stone statue. Just as the many oracles relaxed their vigilance, a pillar of black fire erupted from the broken body, shooting skyward. The radius of that fire pillar was several hundred meters, instantly engulfing all surrounding streets and buildings. The surveillance equipment nearby was reduced to ashes. Had this particular camera not been positioned just outside the edge of the fire pillar, it would have likely been affected as well. Even so, at the moment the black fire pillar shot up, the surveillance footage became violently distorted. The subsequent images were nearly impossible to discern, but Qingyu did not stop Jiang Er. He stood before the screen, his eyes fixed intently on it, the grayness in his gaze flickering as if searching for something. The blackness in the footage gradually faded, and amidst the flickering screen, chaotic light and shadow intertwined with images of the street, dazzling the eyes. At that moment, Qingyu suddenly spoke. Stop. The image froze. Increase the brightness to the maximum. That spot, zoom in. The image brightened again and Jiang Er followed Qingyu's instructions, enlarging a corner of the blurry screen. In the dark image, a vague outline began to emerge. It was a face without pupils, grinning sinisterly as if it came from hell, eerie and terrifying. That was Chao Yuan's face. Chapter 730. The Essence of Chao Yuan. Is that Chao Yuan? Jiang Er frowned as he looked at the illusory figure emerging from the black flames, uncertainly speaking, how did he end up like this? After the divine punishment descended, 2/3 of his body was melted away, and all his vital organs like the brain and heart turned to ashes. Logically, he shouldn't have survived, let alone destroy a city, and Qingyu adjusted his glasses and calmly analyzed. That towering black pillar of fire is the same as the malevolent flames released when his Black King Annihilation went berserk. The fact that he could survive in such a state and quickly restore his body is likely due to this forbidden ruin. Is Chao Yuan really that strong? Jiang Er couldn't help but interject. He destroyed an entire city and killed so many oracle envoys. Isn't that close to the peak of human power? That's not Chao Yuan, Qingyu said firmly. Chao Yuan doesn't remember anything after the divine punishment descended, and I've repeatedly checked his body. He doesn't possess that level of power. That power comes from Black King Annihilation itself. Forbidden Ruin? But isn't that just a type of ability? How can it have its own consciousness? Indeed, the Forbidden Ruin is just an ability, but it has been proven that Black King Annihilation is not that simple, and Qingyu looked at Jiang Er. Don't you find it strange? Black King annihilation, or merely an ability, why is the triggering condition to draw the sword? Why can't Chao Yuan activate the Forbidden Ruin by his own will? Why does he lose control of his body when using the Forbidden Ruin? When the malevolent flames wrap around his body, what is controlling him? Why does it grin maliciously? You must understand, even the King Ruin wouldn't have a situation where the Forbidden Ruin takes control of the host. Jiang Er stood there in shock. Forbidden Ruin Sequence 031, beneath the Divine Ruin and above all beings, Black King annihilation, is far from as simple as we see it, and Qingyu's eyes flickered with a gray light. In my view, Chao Yuan is not the master of this Forbidden Ruin. He is merely the prison that confines the Black King. He is the prison? Jiang Er didn't quite understand Qingyu's meaning. There's no other way to explain all this. Clearly, Chao Yuan has been killed by divine punishment, yet his body still automatically repairs itself, even killing several Oracle envoys and destroying a city. And the reason everything happened might simply be that the prison confining the Black King was damaged. Then the Black King escaped. Then where is the Black King now? Has it already left Chao Yuan? Impossible. If the Black King had escaped, the entire human circle wouldn't have survived. Moreover, without it, Chao Yuan wouldn't have been able to endure the erosion of the bone erosion lock for 2 years while still possessing a strong self-regeneration ability. And Qingyu pondered for a moment and analyzed, I think Chao Yuan's prison is not just a simple physical concept. It is a prison of fate. What do you mean by a prison of fate? Jiang Er was increasingly confused. As long as the concept of Chao Yuan exists, the Black King cannot escape this prison. Even if his physical body dies, the Black King can only gain temporary freedom and cannot completely escape the concept of Chao Yuan. The more Qingyu spoke, the brighter his eyes became, and a long-lost excitement ignited within them. These are just my speculations. Without dissecting his brain, we might not arrive at an accurate answer. Since he won't die from having his skull opened, perhaps if I talk to him nicely, he might be willing to let me dissect him. Jiang Er's mouth twitched slightly. I don't think that's likely. And Qingyu sighed. In any case, it's best that Chao Yuan doesn't find out about this. Due to his childhood experiences, he is already somewhat reclusive. If he learns that he is merely a prison, he will likely question his existence and may even withdraw from the Nightfall Squad. Withdraw from the squad? Is it that serious? If he dies, the Black King will emerge and carry out terrifying indiscriminate attacks. Have you forgotten how Hachiman Plain City disappeared? And Qingyu looked at her with a complex expression. If such a thing were to happen during a team mission, neither the enemy nor us would survive. Do you think he would stay in the squad after realizing what kind of danger his existence entails? Jiang Er fell silent. Indeed, given Chao Yuan's personality, he would rather leave the Nightfall Squad voluntarily than put the other members in such a dangerous situation. Let's not discuss this anymore. We'll just tell Chia about it later and see what he plans to do. And Qingyu seemed to think of something. By the way, did Chao Yuan mention Lin Chia's phone number? He did. I've already tracked his location through signals and can establish contact at any time. Good, connect directly to the video device next to him. We've gathered so much intelligence, it's time to put it to use. Hokkaido. The convoy of the Black Kill Group drove into a luxurious high-end club. Before flying to Hokkaido, Shin Qingju's right-hand man had already arranged everything. The entire club belonged to the Black Kill Group, and now that the group leader Shin Qingju had personally arrived, the club was completely cleared out. All the members stood respectfully outside, bowing deeply to the arriving vehicles. After a few people got out of the car, they followed Shin Qingju's subordinates to the highest-level private room in the club to continue exchanging intelligence. So, the source of divine authority within this human circle is Pure Land? The knight pondered after listening to Wei Dong's introduction. 7 Oracle envoys equivalent to the Klein realm. That's not very strong, and it's still quite a bit weaker than the human circle managers of Norse and Greek mythology. Wei Dong nodded. Once the follow-up forces of the S78 arrive, dealing with the 7 Oracle envoys shouldn't be difficult. However, the technological power of Pure Land is mixed with divine power, making it not easy to break through there. If the Oracle envoys take a stand within Pure Land, things could get troublesome. Unless the president personally intervenes, we might fall into a stalemate. The night fell silent. Lin Chia, Shen Qingzhu and Jialan sat on the sofa next door, silently eating the fruit on their plates. Bailey Pang Pang had already been settled into a separate room to continue sleeping and recuperating. At that moment, the large television screen in the private room suddenly switched on by itself. Chapter 731. The Great Shock of the Shangye Society. Shuas. Dense snowflakes scattered across the screen, emitting a faint electrical sound, causing everyone present to freeze in place. Wei Dong glanced at the television, a look of confusion appearing in his eyes. In such a high-end club, how could the TV be so terrible? Wait, the TV isn't even on? At the same time, Lin Chia and the other two suddenly sat up straight from the sofa, their eyes flashing with excitement. Jiang Air. Clap. With a soft sound, the snowflakes on the TV disappeared simultaneously, and as the image shifted, a quiet young man in a white lab coat and black-rimmed glasses appeared on the screen. His gaze swept across the room, landing on Wei Dong the Knight and Yu Gong Qinghui, three unfamiliar figures. His eyes narrowed slightly as he paused for a moment on Wu Xiangnan, quickly recalling who he was. Finally, upon seeing Lin Chia and the others, a smile began to unconsciously form at the corners of his mouth. Finally, found you all. Qingyu. Although Lin Chia and Chao Yuan knew through a phone call that Qingyu would come looking for them, they certainly didn't expect it to be in this manner. He smiled and said, I knew you two should be together. After all, I was washed ashore with a coffin on my back, and Jiang Air was indeed with me the whole time. And Qingyu chuckled, thanks to her, I was able to play a small role. Why didn't you come to Hokkaido? Chao Yuan should have told you our location, right? Lin Chia asked, puzzled. My current location is a bit special and I can't leave casually. Special? Where are you? And Qingyu didn't answer. He glanced at Wei Dong and the others, the meaning unspoken. His position was critical and he wasn't sure if these people could be trusted. It's okay, they are from the Shangye Society, allies of the Night Watchers, Lin Chia introduced. And Qingyu nodded and then said, I'm in the Pure Land. Clay. The fruit plate in the knight's hand fell to the ground. He stared blankly at the screen, beginning to doubt whether he had misheard. Pure Land? Lin Chia seemed to realize something, his brows furrowing immediately. You were captured by the Oracle envoy? No, I drove them away. Lin Chia was stunned. The knight and Wei Dong were also taken aback. The knight turned his head in confusion to look at Wei Dong, who was equally dumbfounded, his eyes filled with bewilderment. That look seemed to say, didn't you say the Pure Land was hard to breach? Didn't you say the Oracle envoy occupied the Pure Land, and the situation was very tricky? What is going on now? You're in the Pure Land? You drove away the Oracle envoy. Wei Dong couldn't help but speak up, are you serious? And Qingyu raised an eyebrow, silently picked up the screen from the table, turned it around in the control room and then placed it back down. I'm serious, he said. Wei Dong. This is unscientific. In this team, one person controls the Japanese underworld and becomes a legend in the underworld, which is already absurd. How could there be another who directly stole the Pure Land? You all make me feel very unprofessional and embarrassed. Captain Lin. The knight couldn't help but sit next to Lin Chia. Is your special team from Daxia all this powerful? Lin Chia was also shocked by Qinyu's home invasion. He snapped back to reality after a moment of surprise and thought for a moment. Should not all of them? The knight paused for a moment as if thinking of something. By the way, Captain Lin, your teammates are so powerful. Have you also achieved something? Can you tell us what kind of influence or reputation you have in the human circle? Lin Chia. No, Lin Chia shook his head firmly. I've only been here for a short time, just a month. I haven't achieved anything, let alone have any reputation. The rising star of the gigolo world has nothing to do with him. But, does having a bunch of Huijin Dao count? A look of understanding appeared on the knight's face. Fortunately, their conversation was in Chinese the whole time, and Yu Gong Qinghui sitting beside them had no chance to stab Lin Chia. You're in the Pure Land, so where did the Oracle envoys go? Lin Chia turned to look at Qingyu on the screen, asking curiously. I don't know. They should be active around Tokyo, looking for opportunities to take back the Pure Land, so I can't leave here. Once Jiang Air and I leave, this place will fall back into their hands and it will be difficult to get back in later. And Qingyu said seriously. Lin Chia nodded repeatedly, unable to help but given Qingyu a thumbs up. During my time in the Pure Land, I've basically uncovered all the secrets in this human circle. And Qingyu took a deep breath and said seriously, listen carefully to everything I say next. Tokyo, Chiyoda District. Several cars from the Kazumitsuri family sped past on the streets of Akihabara. On the roadside, at the front of a long line waiting for the release of a new game in a large video game store, a tall boy with snow-white long hair turned around, looking in the direction of the departing cars, a look of confusion appearing in his star-like eyes. What's wrong, Takahaku? A middle-aged man in a sequined suit beside him glanced in that direction and asked curiously. That car just now had a level 72 man in it. It's the first time I've seen someone with such a high level outside the Pure Land, and there was also a level 58 little girl sitting next to him. Yuzuri Takahaku slowly turned his head and explained. Level, huh? Uncle Jingjie paused. So what level am I in your eyes? Yuzuri Takahaku glanced at him. Uncle, your level is usually quite unstable. When you have a sword hanging at your waist, you're level 69, but when the sword isn't with you, you're only level 18. Uncle Jingjie. Yuzuri Takahaku wasn't mistaken. For the master of Huijin Dao, combat power mainly comes from the Huijin Dao. When possessing the Huijin Dao, one is very strong, but without it, one is just a somewhat stronger ordinary person. Uncle Jingjie was about to say something, his mouth slightly open, when he suddenly broke into a violent cough. Cough, cough, cough. His face turned pale as he pulled out a bottle of medicine from his suit pocket, popped a few pills into his mouth and swallowed hard, his palm already stained red. Yuzuri Takahaku frowned as he looked at the void above Uncle Jingjie's head and reminded him. Uncle, your serious illness debuff has lit up again. You're starting to lose health. Uncle Jingjie waved his hand. I know, it's fine. After taking the medicine, I'll be fine in a bit. Chapter 732. His father. Uncle Kayasuke's health was in terrible condition. By vitamins and supplements. After battling several Oracle envoys in the Pure Land, his physical injuries were slowly healing, but the severe illness left by the calamity was worsening with the passage of time. Every organ in his body was afflicted with disease, some more severe than others. Aside from going to the hospital and being prescribed a jumble of medications to forcibly suppress the symptoms, he had no other options. If he were to lift the illusion of the misty eyes and reveal the true appearance of Yuzuri Takashi, one would find that his face had become several times more haggard than before, as if he had aged 20 years, showing signs of illness. Uncle Kayasuke put away the medicine and glanced at the time. The release date for the new game is almost here. After we buy the game, let's pick up some groceries on the way back and make curry pork cutlet for dinner. Curry pork cutlet? Yuzuri Takashi's eyes lit up and he licked his lips, nodding obediently. Sure. Uncle, your cooking is way better than nutritional supplements. Uncle Kayasuke smiled slightly, reaching out to pat his head, a look of fondness flashing in his eyes. A few minutes later, Yuzuri Takashi ran out of the store, excitedly clutching the newly released game cartridge. His snow-white hair was tied back, glinting like it was edged with gold in the sunset. He waved at Uncle Kayasuke, who was walking behind him like a simple, cheerful boy next door. Yuzuri Takashi's handsome appearance attracted the attention of girls wherever he went. They gathered in small groups, staring at him while whispering among themselves. That boy is so handsome. Yeah, he's even more handsome than the stars on TV. Could he be a celebrity too? No way. If he were a celebrity that good-looking, I would have heard of him. His white hair looks amazing. Is it real? Of course it's a wig. What boy has hair like that? And didn't you notice he's wearing colored contacts? He's really handsome, but he's too skinny. Is he malnourished? Under the dimming sunset, Uncle Kayasuke walked with a slightly unsteady gait, smiling as he watched the white-haired boy run ahead, cheerfully making his way down the street. Behind them, two long shadows merged on the asphalt road, intertwining in the play of light and shadow. About 10 minutes later, Yuzuri Takashi unlocked the door with a key, took off his shoes, and dashed into the rental apartment, eagerly turning on the TV and inserting the game cartridge into the device. Meanwhile, Uncle Kayasuk carried the groceries into the kitchen, rolled up his sleeves and prepared to cook. Uncle, come sit with me. We've been waiting a long time for the sequel to this game, right? Let's play for a bit before dinner. Yuzuri Takashi connected two controllers, sat on the soft mat and picked up one of the controllers, waving it at Uncle Kayasuk. You can play first. I'll finish cooking and then I'll join you after dinner. Yuzuri Takashi shrugged, picking up his controller and starting to play. Uncle Kayasuk stood in the kitchen watching Yuzuri Takashi play alone, smiling helplessly. Over the years he had imagined Yuzuri Takashi's personality countless times. After being a lab rat in the Pure Land for so long, he thought Yuzuri Takashi would be deeply affected, perhaps becoming dark or even extreme. But he never expected that Yuzuri Takashi had simply turned into a gaming otaku as pure as a blank slate. Perhaps some people are born good. Even in such a painful and desperate environment, they still hold a piece of Pure Land in their hearts, and games became the refuge for Yuzuri Takashi's soul. Without those games, Yuzuri Takashi might have gone insane, or perhaps grown into a terrifying figure with extreme personality traits. For Yuzuri Takashi, games were not just games, they were his salvation. Fortunately, games also became Uncle Kayasuk's salvation. Without games, it wouldn't have been so easy for Uncle Kayasuk to get close to Yuzuri Takashi. Once he learned that Yuzuri Takashi was interested in games, Uncle Kayasuk immediately showcased his skills as a smooth talker, transforming himself into a seasoned gaming enthusiast, taking him on wild shopping sprees in Akihabara, quickly bridging the gap between them. Of course, for a middle-aged man like Uncle Kayasuk, playing games could be tiring, especially staying up late to play. But Uncle Kayasuk found joy in it. Not because of the games themselves, but because sitting beside him playing games together was his son. After a few minutes, 2 bowls of fragrant curry pork cutlet were brought out from the kitchen. Uncle Kayasuk, wearing an apron, wiped his hands on it and called out, "Time to eat." Yuzuri Takashi, smelling the aroma, immediately felt hungry. He swallowed, put down his controller and sat down at the table. He picked up a piece of golden curry and stuffed it into his mouth, his eyes instantly brightening. "Uncle, your curry pork cutlet is really delicious," Yuzuri Takashi said sincerely. "Right? My daughter says the same thing," Uncle Kayasuk replied proudly. "Uncle, you have a daughter?" "Yes, she's your age, very well behaved and smart." Yuzuri Takashi thought for a moment. "So you are also a father?" Uncle Kayasuk was taken aback, then smiled. "Of course." Yuzuri Takashi lowered his head, shoveling a few bites of rice into his mouth as if deep in thought. "What's wrong?" Uncle Kayasuk asked when he noticed Yuzuri Takashi had fallen silent. Yuzuri Takashi slowly spoke. "Before I came down, someone told me, my father is waiting for me. He's been waiting for a long time and wants me to find him. And then I asked him, what is a father?" Yuzuri Takashi paused. "He said a lot like selfless, willing to give everything for me, tall and mighty." I said I didn't understand. Then he said, "When you meet that special man for you, don't doubt it, that is your father." Uncle Kayasuk's chopsticks froze in midair. After a moment he continued eating as if nothing had happened. "So now what do you think of fathers?" "I don't know," Yuzuri Takashi shook his head. "I've never met him, nor have I experienced what they call fatherly love. To me he might just be a stranger I encounter while waiting in line to buy a new game, just a fleeting passerby. Moreover, I've been down here for so long and that father still hasn't come to find me. But that's fine too. If he came he would only interrupt our gaming," Yuzuri Takashi said with a smile. Uncle Kayasuk was silent for a moment. "Then if he really comes, what will you do?" Yuzuri Takashi thought for a moment. "If he really comes, perhaps I would ask him if he wants to sit down and play a game together." Upon hearing this response, Uncle Kayasuk was stunned for a long time before a smile appeared on his lips. "Let's eat. After we finish we can game all night." Chapter 733, The Great Xia Needs You. Hokkaido. High-end club. Inside the private room, everyone fell silent after hearing all the information from Inchinyu. Their expressions were extremely serious. Something happened in Takamagara? The knight furrowed his brow tightly. How could this happen? There was no intelligence on this at all. But they indeed abandoned the human circle. Otherwise the oracles wouldn't dare to harbor any rebellious thoughts, let alone privately mobilize the soul fuel within the human circle, to prepare for the creation of an oracle army. Lin Chia agreed with Qingyu's reasoning. Fortunately, they haven't found the existence of that relic. Once they discover a way to leave the human circle, they will undoubtedly start replicating the oracle army and initiate a war against Daxia. Wu Xiangnan regained his composure from the information provided by Qingyu and couldn't help but sigh. Wei Dong nodded. He stood up from the sofa and sincerely thanked Qingyu. Thanks to you for providing the intelligence. Otherwise, we wouldn't have received such confidential information until we stormed into the Pure Land. Qingyu raised an eyebrow. Don't thank me, I didn't collect this information for you. If you want to thank someone, thank our captain. Wei Dong was taken aback. The knight nodded thoughtfully, also standing up from the sofa, and solemnly performed a Western knight's salute to Lin Chia. Captain Lin, on behalf of the Shangxie Society, I extend our sincerest gratitude to the Nightfall team. I will report these matters truthfully to the president, and Daxia will surely receive the news. After you return to your country, we will award you for your merits. Moreover, your fifth special team is essentially the Mist Walker of the Night Watchman. You will likely enter the mist frequently, and if your team encounters any difficulties in the mist, the Shangxie Society will definitely lend a helping hand. The knight's gratitude was quite substantial, and given his position as a special envoy of the Shangxie Society, he could indeed make such promises. Lin Chia did not decline and gladly accepted the goodwill of the Shangxie Society, but he was somewhat puzzled by the knight's mention of Mist Walker. Every special team in Daxia has its own unique responsibilities. I believe you are already aware of this. Wu Xiangnan noticed Lin Chia's confusion and began to explain. The 001 Heroic Spirit Team is responsible for guarding Daxia's national fortune. The 002 Medium Team is responsible for hunting down extremely dangerous malignant superhumans within the country. The 003 Phoenix Team is responsible for eliminating foreign mysteries that have infiltrated the country. The 004 Mask Team is responsible for clearing out powerful domestic mysteries across various regions. And the 005 Special Team is tasked with walking in the mist to execute high-risk missions. Previously, this function was handled by the Blue Rain Team, but Wu Xiangnan paused, looking at Lin Chia with a complex expression. From now on, this responsibility will fall solely on your team. Once you return to your country and officially complete the formalities, acquiring your own name, you will become the Mist Walker of Daxia's Night Watchman. Mist Walker. Lin Chia murmured to himself. After defeating the team from Shangjing City and obtaining the qualification to become a special team, you have been missing for more than 2 years. Coupled with the vacuum period following the destruction of the Blue Rain, Daxia has not had a team fulfilling the Mist Walker duty for nearly 10 years. If it were 2 years ago, it would have been fine, but during your absence, Daxia's situation in the mist has become increasingly perilous. Without the 005 teams, in the mist, Daxia will become more and more passive. Wu Xiangnan looked seriously into Lin Chia's eyes, took a deep breath and spoke slowly. You must return to your country as soon as possible. Daxia urgently needs the 5th special team. Lin Chia nodded slightly. I know we should go back, but what about things here? Everything in the human circle is our responsibility. You don't need to worry, the knight replied. Next, we need to familiarize ourselves with the terrain here, prepare a list of 50,000 people for extradition, devise a destruction plan, and then bring the main force of the Shangxie Society over. This process will take at least another 6 months. If you continue to stay here, it would be a waste of time. As Wu Xiangnan said, the entire Daxia is waiting for you. You shouldn't be here. Lin Chia remained silent for a long time but eventually nodded. I understand. Pure Land. Qingyu looked at the now closed electronic screen in front of him and let out a long breath. Qingyu, are we going back? Jiang Air floated beside Qingyu and asked. Yes. Qingyu turned to look out the window, gazing down at the tiny city below, a slight smile appearing on his lips. After drifting outside for so many years, I can finally go home. What about here? Jiang Air gently raised a hand, and the entire electronic screen of the Pure Land flickered to life. Should we delete all the databases here? What about the body reshaping and soul replication devices inside? No, and Qingyu adjusted his glasses, the lenses reflecting a pale light from the screen's snowflake glow. Chia said his sword will only be repaired tomorrow, and we have some time before we gather again. Let's copy all the data here. As for those soul replication devices and the data on the god-making experiments, I will analyze them personally. This Pure Land is a treasure combining technology and mystery. It would be too regrettable to destroy it just like that. And Qingyu's gaze swept around and he spoke calmly. I want all the technology of the oracles. Tokyo. Kazamizuki family. Wearing the kimono of the young master of the Kazamizuki family, Yuzuna walked slowly through the courtyard corridor, the maple leaves falling gently with the breeze, scattered before a quiet courtyard. Yuzuna reached out and lightly knocked on the wooden door. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. A man's voice came from inside. Yuzuna pushed open the wooden door and a figure in black holding a straight sword sat quietly on the tatame, staring at the fallen leaves in the courtyard, lost in thought. Brother Chaoyuan. Yuzuna stood at the door and said, Brother Chia called and asked me to send you to Hokkaido. To Hokkaido? Chaoyuan turned his head in confusion. Didn't he say yesterday to wait for him here? He said he found a way home. Chaoyuan's eyes subtly flickered. Yuzuna opened her mouth, seemingly wanting to say something, a hint of faint sadness flashing in her eyes. Brother Chia said that tomorrow night, you all should leave. Perhaps you will never come back. Chaoyuan remained silent for a long time, stood up from the tatame, hung the straight sword at his waist and let out a long sigh. I understand. Thank you for your hard work. Chapter 734. The Login Time of Baili Pang Pang. Late at night. Lin Chia sat by Baili Pang Pang's bedside, his mental energy sweeping over his body and he let out a long sigh. Still no signs of waking up? Jialon, sitting beside him, spoke with some concern. How long is he going to sleep? Lin Chia looked at the pale face, paused for a moment in silence and shook his head. I don't know. I initially guessed he would be in this deep sleep for a little over a day, which seemed about right, but now there are still no signs of him waking up at all. How long has he been sitting on that meditation cushion? What if he hasn't woken up by the time we go back tomorrow night? We'll just have to carry him back. Lin Chia touched the free space in his pocket. With these forbidden items, even if he doesn't have a diving device, getting back to the surface won't be a problem. Jialon nodded slightly. At least he's just sleeping and there's no other danger. Just then Lin Chia's mental energy seemed to sense something. He looked up at the door, stood up and walked outside. Jialon, keep an eye on Pang Pang. I'll step out for a bit. Okay. Lin Chia pushed the door open and stepped out. On the rooftop under the starry night, a figure with a deep blue long knife hanging at his waist was quietly leaning against the railing, silently gazing at the distant neon-lit city. What are you doing here alone? Lin Chia walked up beside him. Yugong Sewi shrugged. You are all invaders. I can't understand what you're saying and I can't sleep, so I came up to get some fresh air. Lin Chia recalled how Yugong Sewi had been silently standing by all day, and he couldn't help but smile wryly. After everything is over, come back to Daxia with me. You'll like it there. It doesn't matter if you don't know Chinese, I can teach you. Yugong Sewi seemed to think of something, a faint smile flashing across his lips, but soon his eyes dimmed. And is it? Are you worried about the residents within this human circle? Yugong Sewi paused for a moment, then nodded, saying, I know what the essence of the human circle is, and I understand the kind of evil that lies behind this glamorous and extravagant city. Overthrowing and destroying the divine authority is my long-held wish. I believe this place should be destroyed, but... Yugong Sewi extended his hand, pointing toward the distant city, and slowly spoke. Those people are innocent. They were just born in this sinful place. They shouldn't be buried together with the evil created by the gods. You are invaders. To you this is merely a place where humans are kept. You have no obligation to be responsible for these people's lives. But I am different. I was born here and grew up here. Although I hate these people who have been corrupted beyond redemption by divine authority, I cannot just sit back and watch them be buried here. I won't stop you from destroying this place, but I will find a way in my own manner to save them. Yugong Sewi gazed at the distant city, determination flickering in his eyes. That's a population of 50 million. What can you do to save them? Lin Chia couldn't help but ask. Though it's slim, there is still hope. Yugong Seiwi placed his hand on the yubing at his waist, gently rubbing the hilt. Do you remember the rumor I told you about? The Kuni god forged 9 calamity knives to combat the Tianjin god. When the 9 calamity knives merge into one, it will truly be complete, transforming into a divine artifact capable of cutting through Takamagara. Divine artifact. Lin Chia seemed to realize something. You want to gather all 9 calamity knives? The divine artifact Yata no Kagami of Takamagara can serve as a container for the human circle. Why can't the final calamity knife forged by the Kuni god serve as a container? Yugong Seiwi's eyes sparkled with a faint light. If I can merge the 9 calamity knives into that divine artifact, I can create a brand new free world without divine authority to accommodate this 50 million population. Lin Chia opened his mouth as if to say something but ultimately closed it again. This plan is too bold, too risky, too improbable. Creating a world that can accommodate 50 million people is not as simple as just having a divine artifact. It also involves how to sustain them within the artifact. Should Yugong Seiwi also use a massive number of human souls as fuel like the gods of Takamagara? But regardless, this is the last hope for these 50 million people. I understand. Lin Chia nodded. Before I leave, I will leave Duo E and Black Rope with you. I hope you can fulfill your long-held wish. Yugong Seiwi turned to gaze at Lin Chia for a long time, then smiled slightly. Thank you. 2 calamity knives. This favor is too heavy. Besides deeply remembering this favor in his heart, Yugong Seiwi had no other way to repay it. No need to thank me. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to obtain these 2 calamity knives, especially Duo E. Lin Chia was halfway through his sentence when he suddenly froze. He looked at the purple long knife at his waist as if he had thought of something and his brow furrowed tightly. What's wrong? Yugong Seiwi asked. Something's not right. Lin Chia suddenly raised his head. Did your master tell you that calamity knives couldn't be used in the ruins? Yeah. When did your master enter the ruins? He entered with Yuzuriha Kurotetsu, probably 12 years ago? 12 years ago. Lin Chia's heart jolted violently. 12 years ago, when Yugong Seiwi's master entered the ruins, he already knew that calamity knives couldn't be used there. This means that the ruins must have already been covered by Bailey Pangpang's omnipotent suppression at that time. How is that possible? Bailey Pangpang shouldn't have landed 2.5 years ago, right? The moment this thought arose in his mind, Lin Chia's body trembled slightly as if he had been electrocuted. So far, there has been no information indicating that Bailey Pangpang landed 2.5 years ago. That 2.5 years ago was a time Lin Chia deduced based on the landing intervals of other members. He didn't even know Bailey Pangpang's exact landing time. If what Yugong Seiwi said is true, then Bailey Pangpang must have landed in the human circle and entered the ruins 12 years ago or even earlier, sitting on the meditation cushion. He has been sitting on that cushion for at least 12 years? If that's the case, why hasn't he aged? Is it because of that mysterious cushion? At this moment, countless thoughts surged in Lin Chia's mind. He felt as if his head had turned into a mush, and an inexplicable fear rose in his heart. Bailey Pangpang really sat on that cushion for 12 years. Then will he ever wake up?